Hello, everyone, and welcome to another mini Sky Tonight, and happy Mother's Day. From all of us at the Scobee Education Center to you, we want to wish all you moms out there a wonderful and happy Mother's Day despite these crazy times. And we want to say we love you and we appreciate everything that you've done for us and shown us the love that we desperately need. So for you, the rest of you folks that want to impress your mom, allow me to show you a few things that you can show your mom on Mother's Day night, as well as some of the constellations to look at with your mom. So let's look over here towards the western horizon, and just shortly after sunset, you'll see this bright star over here. And believe it or not, that's actually not a star. It's the planet Venus. In fact, if you have a pair of binoculars or a small telescope, try to zoom in on this because you'll just notice something interesting. It looks like a bright star, but when you look at it up close and personal, it looks very different. So as you can see, it's in a crescent phase. Believe it or not, Venus goes through phases like the moon does, but we don't get to see all of the phases of Venus. And the reason being is because Venus is closer to the sun than the Earth is, and since its orbit is closer inward, we don't get to see the full phase of Venus. That's because in order for us to have been able to see the full phase of Venus, we would have to literally be looking straight through the sun, because the full phase of Venus would be when the planet Venus would be on the opposite side of the sun compared to Earth. So even though we don't get to see a full phase of Venus, we do see it in different phases. We get to see it in quarter phases, crescents, and gibbous phases. So let's zoom back out. Now let's head over here towards the southeast to look at a bunch of spring/summertime constellations. In fact, let's head up north a little bit and let's look for the Big Dipper to help us find a couple of different constellations. So here's the Big Dipper. You have 4 stars that form the bowl and 3 stars that form the handle. In fact, let's bring up the constellation lines. So even though this is a constellation Ursa Major, we can still recognize the famous Big Dipper asterism. So notice the Big Dipper's handle kind of makes a curve. If you follow the arc of the Big Dipper's handle, you'll run into this bright star right here, which is kind of orangish in color, called Arcturus, which is in the constellation Bootes, the herdsman. Now, I don't see a shepherd out of this. I see a kite, because it's one of the fun things I always enjoy doing come springtime when it's nice and windy outside. Right next to the constellation Bootes, and the reason being why I call it Bootes and not Booties is because one of the O's on the constellation has umlauts. Now, if I accidentally butcher the constellation name, I do apologize. German is not an easy language for me to handle, but I am trying to learn. Nonetheless, right next to the constellation Bootes is the constellation Corona Borealis, or the Northern Crown, but it's often nicknamed the necklace or the smile in the sky. If you follow the curve of Corona Borealis, you'll run into this stick figure kind of guy right here. I often nickname him the Dixie Cup in the sky because it has a unique shape of the Dixie Cup. This is the constellation Hercules. So yes, the Disney character Hercules is up in the nighttime sky. But hidden within the constellation Hercules is a really unique object, just right underneath his armpit, right about in here. In fact, if you have a pair of binoculars or a small telescope, bear with me here, I recommend zooming in on this area. And you'll see this little faint cluster of stars. This is called the Great Star Cluster in Hercules, or sometimes called M13 by astronomers. The M stands for Charles Messier, who was a French astronomer who was looking for a comet like Comet Halley. Sadly, though, he didn't find very many comets, and especially one as famous as Comet Halley, but he did find several objects in the nighttime sky that were considered fuzzy patches. And he created a list of these fuzzy patches to denote that this was not a comet. And that not a comet list has been used constantly to this day. And this is one of those particular objects that he thought could have been a comet, but in actuality it isn't. This particular object is several thousand light years away from us. And the reason being is because it exists outside of our galaxy. It's, in fact, some astronomers believe that they could have been like galaxies in the making, so to say, and they contain some of the oldest stars. Now, globular clusters, I sometimes like to call as star cities, because the average distance between each of the stars is like the same distance between the Earth is to the sun. And there's several thousands of stars packed into a tiny little area. All right, so let's go back here. And so here you have the handle of the Big Dipper, and you follow it down here to Arcturus. And if you spike downward, you run into this star right here called Spica. It's a bright blue star, which is in the constellation Virgo. So let's forward time a little bit. So this is kind of what the sky looks like roughly around about 9:30. So let's forward time a little bit to show you some of the summertime constellations. So a little bit after midnight, you can start seeing some of the summer constellations starting to make their debut. Like this J-shaped constellation right here is the constellation Scorpius, the Scorpion. And at the heart of the Scorpion is the bright star called Antares. I sometimes like to call it the not Mars star, because it kind of looks bright and red, and sometimes the planet Mars passes by it. And this teacup shaped constellation, or teakettle shaped constellation right here is the constellation Sagittarius. Yes, I do not see a half man, half horse out of this either. Like I said, I call it the tea kettle constellation. So here's the spout, here's the lid, and here's the handle. To me, that kind of looks like a tea kettle. Notice where the spout is pointing towards, kind of like in the center of this hue right here. That is the center of our galaxy, the Milky Way. So you can see where the center of our own galaxy is when we see the Milky Way galaxy edge on. And of course, the bright object that exists inside the constellation Sagittarius right now is our own moon, which is close to a full phase right now. Or, forgive me, it was a full phase a few days ago, but now it's starting to get into a waning gibbous phase. And of course, the bright star that you can see close to the horizon is actually a planet. It is the bright planet Jupiter. So you can see Jupiter roughly around about midnight, if not after, on the horizon. In fact, let's look at Jupiter up close and personal just to show you what it looks like. So if you have a pair of binoculars or small telescope, take a look at this unique object. In fact, you get to see 4 of the Galilean moons on Mother's Day. These 4 moons are called the Galilean moons because they were first discovered by Galileo Galilei. He thought these were just stars that existed around Jupiter, but he noticed over the course of time that they went around the planet. And it was one of the pieces of evidence that he used to prove that our sun was in the center of the solar system rather than the Earth. And the 4 moons in particular are called Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. And these are the 4 natural moons that go around Jupiter because Jupiter has over 65 moons. Yeah, it's a great amount. But these are the 4 moons that astronomers believe naturally formed alongside with Jupiter. There's one other area I wanted to show you folks. These 3 bright stars right here. They form the asterism that is known as the summer triangle, or the navigator's triangle, because ancient navigators during the summertime used these particular stars for navigation. The top star right here is called Vega. And it's a part of the constellation Lyra, the lyre. L-Y-R-E, not L-I-A-R. It's a harp. But hidden within the constellation Lyra is a really faint object, but a unique object nonetheless. In fact, if you have a pair of binoculars or a small telescope, check out this faint little object right here. It kind of looks like a puff cloud in the sky. This is called the Ring Nebula, and it's a telltale sign of what will happen to our star when it passes away. What's going on in our sun right now is a process called nuclear fusion, where lighter elements are being fused together to produce light, heat, and energy. Well, eventually it's going to start running out of material. And when it does that, it's going to try to conserve what little material it does have left to fuse, and it'll collapse down its core to try to keep fusing. And it will just simply puff out its outer layers in this cosmic ash ball, or as I sometimes like to call it, a cosmic cocoon or tomb. With the tiny little white star in the center is the core remnant of the star that once was. And it's also an M object because it's one of the things that Charles Messier discovered. The bottom left star of the summer triangle is called Deneb, which is in the constellation Cygnus, the swan. I sometimes like to call it the Northern Cross. But at the tip nose of the swan, you'll see this incredible object right here. Believe it or not, it's a multiple star system. And it's a unique one because you can see different colors in the stars. It's sometimes referred to as the Cub Scout star. In fact, you kind of can see two stars right here. Now, with the Stellarium program, the colors are kind of masked a little bit, but if you have a pair of binoculars or a small telescope, zoom in on these two unique stars, Albireo A and B. And most stars are double star systems or even triple star systems. Our star just happens to be unique where it's just one star. But in this particular case, what makes Albireo so unique is that it's unique colors. Rather than the stars being similar in color and age, these two stars are different in color. One is a deep gold and the other one is a bright blue. Hence why it's sometimes called the Cub Scout star because of the colors. And the bottom right star of the summer triangle is called Altair, which is in the constellation Aquila, the eagle. Yeah, I sometimes don't see an eagle out of that. I sometimes call it the stingray, but call it what you will. Nonetheless, these are some of the deep sky objects and things that you can see up in the evening sky that you can share with your family and especially to impress your mom. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. Or if you have any topics you would love for me to cover over, let me know as well. I also posted a video of me being able to do a live presentation from my telescope. So if there's objects you would like for me to be able to zoom in on, let me know so that way I can prepare in advance to be able to set up my telescope. Or if I can get a chance, be able to go to the observatory at the Scobee Education Center and show you some of the objects from that telescope down there. And until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, never stop learning.